how do you actually implement kind of Ryan and DC's self-determination theory in the classroom? I think a lot of us are pretty comfortable with behaviorism. You know, we understand that we give reinforcement, we create, token economies, or maybe we just pass out praise, I like the way you're sitting, or we have a treat box or whatever. There's just thousands of examples of how behaviorism goes in the classroom. So there's far fewer examples of how self-determination theory goes in the classroom, and so I really want us to do a little bit of thinking about that. And I'm going to focus in mostly on the need for autonomy and the need for relatedness. It's not that the need for competence is not important. It's just that that's really more about pedagogy than it is about kind of classroom management or behavior management. It's really a topic for another day. But when we think about how do we implement self-determination theory in the classroom, the big idea, and this really goes to the heart of relatedness, but it also is going to drive our support of children's autonomy. The big idea is that we have to love our children unconditionally. And when I say love our children, I just want to be clear, I'm not talking about like a touchy-feely emotion that we get deep down in our hearts. I'm talking about how we treat children, because when we get to the heart of the matter, children can't tell how we feel about them. All they can tell is how we treat them. And so if we treat children in a way that shows that we love them unconditionally, then they'll know that we love them unconditionally. And I'll just illustrate, very briefly with an example from my own practice. My first year teaching, I taught first grade. I had a group of very challenging first graders, and one of the things that I used to try to motivate my kids was Fun Friday. And if you behaved really well all week, you got to go to Fun Friday on Friday afternoon, and you could, depending on how the weather was outside, we might go play kickball, or we might spend an extra time out at recess, or we might, if it was cold, we might, have hot chocolate and watch a movie. But we would do fun things Friday afternoon, and if you didn't do those things, then you would not get to come to Fun Friday, and you would have to stay in the classroom and work on your handwriting or whatever, kind of mindless task I could think of at the time. And I had a group of 4 or 5 boys who almost never got to go to Fun Friday. I was not punishing them. They were just staying in the classroom and doing whatever it was that they would have been doing anyway, but everyone else got to go out and have this really fun time. And looking back on it today, I know that strongly impacted my relationship with them negatively. They really saw me as the bad guy, or as somebody who didn't love them and care about them. And so it really doesn't matter how I felt about them in my heart. I really liked all 5 of them, but I didn't show them that I loved them. And so I didn't love them unconditionally. My love for them was very conditional. They had to behave all week in order to get this experience, which was kind of an extension of my regard for them. A few years later, when I stopped doing that, I kept doing Fun Friday, but instead of making it dependent on behavior, everybody got to come to Fun Friday. And so my children knew that I loved them because I would go buy popsicles for them, or I would take time to plan fun activities for us to do Fun Friday, and everybody knew that I loved everybody. And so when I talk about kind of loving our kids unconditionally, it's not about how we feel, it's about how we treat them that's really important. So how we treat kids, our relationship with them is really the base of the pyramid. And if we think about our most challenging kids, sometimes moving them can feel like trying to push a boulder. But our relationships are really kind of the levers that we use to move that boulder. And if we have poor relationships with these kids, then we've got very short levers. And if we've got a very strong relationship, then we have very long levers. And we really want to have long levers. So it's almost counterintuitive to think about this, but our relationships with our most challenging children have to be the strongest, because they're the children that we need the strongest levers with. And so when we put this into practice in the classroom, it's really about being intentional, about building strong relationships every day by spending time with those kids, by talking with those kids, by interacting with those kids, and by letting those kids know that we care about them and that we really hold them in positive regard by giving them the best experience that we possibly can. So relationships kind of the base of the pyramid. And then on top of that, kind of a more medium-term solution is teaching behavior. And so when I talk about teaching behavior, we think about teaching kind of pre-reading skills. We talk about teaching functional skills. We talk about teaching emergent math skills or early math skills. We talk about teaching children science and social studies and social geography. We think about teaching all of these things, but we really have to start thinking about teaching children how to behave in exactly the same way and treating it exactly the same way. I see teachers who work with children who are learning their letters, and the teacher will ask them, do you know what this letter is? And the child will say, I don't know, or they'll guess the wrong letter. And the teacher doesn't get frustrated, the teacher doesn't get angry, the teacher doesn't lose their temper or get personally affronted because they don't know their letters. We've got to start treating behavior like that. We've got to start treating behavior and challenging behavior in particular as just evidence that a child doesn't know how to behave in that situation or can't behave in that situation. And so we need to teach that child how to behave and what we expect of them and what the kind of parameters are, what are the kind of boundaries for what they can and can't do in our classrooms. And we've got to do it with the same patience, and we've got to do it with the same strategies, and we've got to do it with the same scaffolding that we use whenever we are teaching children the letters of the alphabet. So it's really important that we spend time every day teaching behavior, and if a child's not getting it, that we spend extra time, maybe we do small group work, maybe we do individual work, but we actually really make sure that they know that behavior, and then we continue to reinforce that and give them chances to practice that throughout the entire rest of the year, even after it looks like they've mastered it. And so that's kind of the middle level of the pyramid, is this idea that we're teaching behaviors. So we've got relationships, which are the base of the pyramid. We've got teaching behavior, which is the middle, and then kind of the top is really what I call designing a smooth experience, and it comes from psychological theories around what are called nudges. But it's the idea that we can, without directly controlling a child, set up the environment in a way that either makes it easier for them to do certain behaviors or makes it more challenging for them to do certain behaviors. So if I have a child that is hitting other children during whole group time, if I move them, not just so that they're next to me, so that I'm close to them and can diffuse things, but so that they're just far away enough from their neighbor that they would have to stand up and take a step and then whack their neighbor, then I'm essentially creating a situation that makes it harder for them to hit somebody else. And so we have to think critically about all of our different procedures in our classroom, the way we have our classroom set up physically, the way that we interact with kids, the way that kids interact with each other. All of that stuff is really on the table as far as how we can create situations that make it easier to do the right thing or make it more difficult to do the wrong thing. And so when we're thinking about our children that maybe have challenging misbehaviors or kind of persistent challenging behaviors, it's important to think in the very short term, what can I do to make it so this child just can't do this behavior? One year I had a child who was a runner, and anytime we were out in the hallway or out on the playground, he would run. And so for me, the only way I could ensure that he wouldn't do that was to hold his hand in the hallway and to play very close to him on the playground. And so even though he had really sweaty hands and would sometimes smell when he came in from the playground, I would be on him like white on rice, because in order for him to be successful, I had to be close to him. It's important for us to think critically about what can we do to kind of nudge children in the right direction to the degree that they need it. And some children may just need a small nudge. They may just need to have their neighbor a little bit further away from them. And some children may need you to hold their hand all the time. And it really just depends on the child. And so what we have here is kind of a pyramid where we've got relationships at the bottom and fulfilling children's autonomy and giving them opportunities to be who they are and to make choices kind of within a broad structure. And then the second level of the pyramid, we've really got teaching behavior, which takes time, but it doesn't take as long as it takes to build strong relationships. You can usually teach a specific behavior in less than a month. Real relationships take months or even sometimes a whole year for some children. And then at the top of the pyramid is stuff that you can do right away. Designing a smooth experience. You can move a chair. You can move a child's place on the carpet. You can set up a boundary around them with tape, or you can do lots of different little things that kind of help nudge them in the right direction and can reduce that challenging behavior right away while you are teaching the behavior and while you are kind of building that relationship that you're going to leverage down the road.